All right, let's talk some Gamecocks today here at the Voice of College Football. We got Chris Phillips on the line from the Spurs Up Show. You can join him each and every Monday through Friday, Facebook, Twitter, Stitcher, your favorite audio platforms, right here on YouTube as well, 12 to 2 Eastern Time, and we will go into those details a little bit later. Chris, how you doing today?
Mark, I appreciate you having me, man. It's a pleasure. You know, we sit here today. 3 weeks from today will be the 100-day mark until kickoff, and I'm sort of starting to get that itch, if you will. I think we all are, where, you know, we're in the midst of baseball season, and certainly as Gamecock fans, we're all passionate about that and really engulfed with that. But you can't help but think, especially when you got the type of hype and momentum that South Carolina has, we are all just counting down the days, the seconds until toe meets leather again. But sincerely, Mark, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity, man. Let me take the time to talk Gamecocks. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Chris, I say it all the time. Regard football is a precious commodity. There's only 12 games. And, you know, it's the shortest season. It's the longest off season. We got to wait the longest of any other American sport to see our teams play on that first Saturday in September. So let's get right to it with South Carolina football. Of course, you just wrapped up with the spring game. What do you know about this football team that maybe you didn't know a month ago, based on the spring game, based on everything else that happened in camp? Or there's some things that you feel better about? Maybe you got some concerns that you didn't have 5 or 6 weeks ago.
You know, I always caution people, Mark, to take the spring game with a grain of salt, because I feel like one of the things people love to do, of course, because like you said, there's a beauty in the scarcity. And I think that's what makes college football so great. I mean, it's the only sport where, you know, we spend months before kickoff ever happens breaking this thing down, dissecting it from position units to offense, defense, special teams, to hanging on every single word that coaches and players say, to giving predictions. I mean, you name it. But, you know, you don't want to take too much away from a spring game, because certainly it feels like every year there's some sort of spring game standout or something that happens that is sort of more of a one-off. And it's a glorified scrimmage, right, when you really break it down. As far as what did we learn and what have I learned about this football team the last couple of weeks, or at least navigating through spring ball, I'm not sure there's anything that I didn't at least already figure or assume based on some of the new additions. You know, I felt like coming into the spring that South Carolina had exponentially improved across the board on the offensive side when it came to the skill positions. Obviously, Spencer Rattler is the headline grabber, and it's a massive upgrade for the Gamecocks, the quarterback position, but all across the offense. You know, the running back position, adding Christian Beal-Smith, Lavassier Carroll, the returns of Marshawn Lloyd and Juju McDowell. Then you look at wide receiver, adding Antoine Wells, and that's something I really think one of my biggest takeaways, Mark, from the spring game was I think Antoine Wells is going to become a household name in the SEC. Him and Josh Van on the outside. Again, if you're not familiar, Wells, a guy that he is an FCS product, played at James Madison, but he was the best wide receiver in FCS last year, a record setter at James Madison. I think he's going to be an absolute beast for South Carolina out there and a great weapon for Rattler to utilize. Obviously, Austin Stogner not on campus yet. And, you know, I think offensively, the big question for this team is going to be the offensive line. That's what it's going to come down to. The difference, I think, between a 6-win or an 8-win season in 2022 for South Carolina, it's going to come down to can they get any push up front, because you return a lot of experience with that unit, but it's experience from a unit that was one of the worst in the SEC last year. Defensively, again, I don't think we've really gotten any answers. Of course, Cam Smith at defensive back's getting a ton of hype. You got a couple of guys up front, and I'm excited about Jordan Strawn, Jordan Birch, but nothing you really learn in the spring game, I think, that you draw any conclusions. I think most fans are just banking on, hey, what South Carolina did last year with the limited guys they had, what Clayton White did, Torian Gray. And I think most just assume that's going to continue, and South Carolina will be at least, you know, above average on the defensive side. So, you know, I think the biggest takeaway from spring practice and the spring game is that South Carolina should be much improved offensively. And I think when you add a guy like Spencer Rattler under center, that's assumed. But actually seeing it on the field, getting the opportunity to see number 7, and while they really didn't open up the playbook and go downfield, you could see some of that natural passing ability. You could see some of the things that made Spencer Rattler a 5-star prospect and made him such a highly touted player and made him market this time last year. People were talking about him being the number 1 pick in the NFL draft and talking about being a leader on their early Heisman odds for 2021. So, of course, that's got Gamecock fans excited when you add that type of player. As we all know, Mark, it's a quarterback-driven game. It's the most important position in sport, and if you don't have that guy, you don't have a chance. And finally, it feels like for the first time since really the Connor Shaw and Dylan Thompson days, way back when Steve Spurrier was the head coach, the Gamecocks have that guy in their center that could potentially lead them to exceeding expectations yet again in Shane Beamer's second year.
Connor Shaw comes to mind as one of the most underrated seasons I can remember in recent times. 24 touchdowns, 1 pick one of those 11-2 seasons, and nobody really recognized him as a top level quarterback, but he got the job done. No question about that. I got Chris Phillips on the line. You got to catch him on his show, the Spurs Up Show. Chris, before we continue, what are people going to find over on your YouTube channel and everything else that you've got going on?
Yeah, so I said the biggest feature is our daily live show, which you highlighted, the Daily Crow. It's live noon to 2, Monday through Friday. And as I was telling you off the air, you can sort of think of it, if I had to compare it to anything, sort of a Paul Feinbaum style show, but specifically for South Carolina. And I will say the beautiful thing about the show this time of year is there isn't as much going on. So it's really fun. Some of the random topics we just dissect and dive into and discuss. But, we take questions, comments, and calls. So people can call in our number, 843-790-3377. We have great banter, great conversation. It's really the wild, wild west, man. Whatever people want to talk about, it's sort of unfiltered, unhinged at times, if you will. And, you can call in and rant. You can call in and whatever you want to discuss, you can do it. So it's a lot of fun. Again, it streams live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. I also post clips from interviews we do, different segments of content. We're also about to begin. We actually just started a Road to Glory series on NCAA football. People love that NCAA football, that video game content. Again, that's, Mark, when you really hit like that peak off season, you know what I mean? When we're just like, there's really nothing else going on.
For
like,
sure.
why don't we watch some fake football? You know what I mean? It's like, that's how starving we are for kickoff. But it's a lot of fun, man. And like I said, the live show is definitely the big feature, 12 to 2, Monday through Friday. And that's something we'll continue throughout summer. I might take a few weeks off in June, just to kind of recharge the batteries when it's really the dead period. But, we don't stop, man. We keep going. I mean, there really is no off season, as you know, Mark, when it comes to SEC football. It is 24/7, 365. So, I'd like to think people are going to find a lot of valuable content and a lot of content where the consumer can interact. It's not just me ranting and raving. That's what the podcast is for. The daily live show is really for people to inject their opinions and give a different perspective. And, I always say the beauty is in the banter. So that's really what that's for. And we have a really good time with it.
Love it. Love it.